The flames were already climbing the fuselage when Jack Reynolds saw the little girl's photo taped to his refrigerator and made his choice. Behind him, his daughter Lily screamed his name. Ahead, someone was dying in that burning wreckage. He'd lost everything once before: his wife, his career, his dreams. But he'd be damned if he'd lose his humanity too. Jack ran toward the fire, not knowing that the unconscious woman trapped inside would either save his life or destroy it. Stay with me until the end of this story and comment below with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The storm had been building all evening, the kind that turns the Kansas sky the color of old bruises and makes the air taste like copper. Jack Reynolds stood at the kitchen sink of his farmhouse washing the dinner dishes by hand because the dishwasher had been broken for 3 months and there was no money to fix it. Through the window, he watched the cornfield bend and sway like a living thing, stalks whispering secrets to each other in the wind. "Dad, the lights are flickering again," Lily called from the living room, where she sat cross-legged on the threadbare couch with her homework spread across the coffee table. A coffee table Jack had built himself from scrap wood because new furniture was a luxury they couldn't afford. "I know, sweetheart. It's just the storm. Nothing to worry about." Jack's voice was steady, practiced in the art of sounding confident when he felt anything but. At 42, he'd become an expert at projecting strength he didn't always possess. His hands, scarred and calloused from years of construction work and farm labor, moved mechanically through the dish soap bubbles. The truth was, everything worried him. The overdue electric bill tucked inside the sugar canister. The check engine light that had been glowing on his truck's dashboard for 2 weeks. The parent-teacher conference reminder pinned to the fridge. Lily's teacher wanted to talk about opportunities for his brilliant daughter, which Jack knew was code for programs they couldn't afford. Lightning cracked across the sky close enough that Jack counted only 2 seconds before the thunder answered. The lights flickered once, twice, then held, barely. "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" Lily's voice carried that particular tone of frustration that meant she'd been staring at the same equation for too long. She was 12 whip smart, with her mother's dark eyes and stubborn chin. Every time Jack looked at her, he saw the woman who died 4 years ago when a drunk driver ran a red light on a Tuesday afternoon, turning Jack's world inside out in the space of a heartbeat. "Give me 2 minutes to finish these dishes, then I'm all yours." Jack had been a helicopter mechanic in the Army, one of the best. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan, come home with commendations and skills that should have translated into a comfortable civilian life. Should have. But PTSD didn't care about should have. Neither did the panic attacks that had cost him his first job at the aircraft manufacturer, or the insomnia that made him unreliable, or the medical bills from Sarah's accident that had swallowed their savings like a black hole. Now he worked 2 jobs construction during the day, stocking shelves at the Super Saver from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. 3 nights a week. He slept in 4-hour increments and ran on coffee and stubborn pride. The farm had been Sarah's dream, 40 acres inherited from her grandfather. Jack kept it running on determination and duct tape, growing just enough corn and soybeans to cover the property taxes. He was drying the last plate when the sound hit. It wasn't like anything Jack had heard before, and he'd heard plenty. The whine of incoming mortars, the scream of a helicopter losing altitude, the terrible silence before an IED detonates. This was different. A shrieking whine that cut through the storm's roar, followed by a boom that shook the farmhouse to its foundation. Every window rattled. The lights went out completely. "Dad!" Lily's scream was pure terror. Jack dropped the plate. It shattered on the linoleum, but he was already moving his combat training snapping into place like muscle memory. He found Lily in the darkness, pulled her close. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. I've got you." His heart hammered against his ribs, but his voice stayed calm. Always stay calm. That's what they'd taught him. Stay calm, so your crew stays calm. What was that? Lily's whole body trembled against him. Jack didn't answer immediately. He was listening, processing. The storm continued its assault, but beneath it he heard something else. A hissing sound. And was that crackling. He moved to the window, Lily clinging to his side. What he saw turned his blood to ice. The cornfield was on fire. About 300 yards out, flames rose into the rain-streaked darkness, bright orange and defiant against the storm. And there, partially buried in the earth like a fallen star, was wreckage, metal, twisted and broken, a plane. "Oh God," Jack breathed. "Is that—" Lily's voice was small, frightened. "Stay here." Jack was already moving toward the door, grabbing his old army jacket from the hook. "Dad, no. You can't. Lock the door behind me. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, you call 911. You understand me." He cupped her face in his hands, looked directly into those dark eyes, so much like her mother's. 10 minutes, Lily. Not a second more. "Please don't go." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Please, Dad. What if—" "I have to." He kissed her forehead, tasting salt and fear. Someone might be alive in there. Jack ran into the storm. The rain hit him like fists cold and relentless. Lightning painted the world in brief, brilliant snapshots. The swaying corn, the path between the stalks, the burning wreckage growing larger with each stride. His boots sank into mud that tried to hold him back, but Jack had learned long ago how to push through resistance. The heat reached him before he reached the fire. Even through the rain, the flames threw waves of scorching air that made his skin prickle. The plane, what was left of it, had carved a wound through his field, a long scar of destruction, ending in twisted metal and fire. It was small, a private aircraft, single engine. The kind that shouldn't have been flying in weather like this, but Jack didn't have time to wonder about poor decisions. The cockpit was partially intact, and through the shattered windscreen, he saw movement. Someone was alive. "Hey," Jack shouted, his voice barely carrying over the roar of fire and storm. "Can you hear me?" No response. The figure inside the cockpit wasn't moving anymore. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe the smoke and fire were playing tricks. But he'd seen something, he was sure of it. The rational part of Jack's brain, the part that had kept him alive through 2 combat tours, screamed at him to back away. The fuel tank could blow any second. The fire was spreading despite the rain. He should wait for the fire department for professionals with proper equipment. But the other part of his brain, the part that had never quite healed after watching Sarah die while he sat helpless in a hospital waiting room, told him that waiting meant death. Waiting meant another person gone, another family, destroyed, another set of if-onlys, to haunt his sleepless nights. Jack ran forward. The heat was tremendous, like opening an oven door and sticking your face inside. The smoke choked him, made his eyes stream tears. He pulled his jacket over his mouth and nose, squinting through the flames to find the cockpit door. It was jammed. "No, no, no." Jack grabbed the handle, pulled with everything he had. The metal was hot enough to burn through his work gloves. The door didn't budge. Inside, the figure stirred again. A hand, pale against the dark interior, reached toward the windscreen. Jack looked around frantically. A piece of the wing had sheared off, lying half buried in the mud. The edge was jagged sharp. He grabbed it, ignoring how the heat seared his palms, and jammed it into the space between the door and the fuselage. "Come on, come on!" He levered his weight against it, using the metal shard as a pry bar. His shoulders screamed in protest. The door groaned. Lightning struck nearby, close enough that Jack's hair stood on end. In that flash of brilliant white light, he saw the person inside clearly for the first time. A woman. Dark hair matted with blood. Eyes closed. Professional clothing, what looked like an expensive suit, now torn and stained. She couldn't have been more than 40. The door gave way with a shriek of tortured metal. Jack dropped the wing shard and reached inside his hands, finding her shoulders. She was unconscious, her breathing shallow and rapid. Blood ran from a gash on her forehead. Her left arm hung at an odd angle, broken, definitely broken. "I've got you," Jack said, even though she couldn't hear him. "I've got you. You're going to be okay." He'd said those exact words to dying soldiers, to his wife in the ambulance. The words were a prayer, more than a promise, A hope shouted into the void. Jack unbuckled her seatbelt with trembling fingers, then carefully pulled her from the wreckage. She was lighter than he expected, or maybe adrenaline made her seem that way. He got her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry, the way they'd taught him in basic training a lifetime ago. Behind him, something in the plane popped and hissed. The fire surged brighter. Jack ran. He ran through the cornfield with the unconscious woman on his shoulder, ran through the mud and rain and darkness, ran like he'd run through the streets of Kandahar, with wounded brothers on his back. His lungs burned. His legs threatened to give out. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not until he was clear of the flames and smoke. He made it 50 yards before the fuel tank exploded. The blast wave knocked him forward. Jack twisted as he fell, taking the impact on his back and shoulder to protect the woman. They hit the muddy ground hard enough to drive the air from his lungs. Debris rained down around them, burning cornstalks, pieces of metal ash that hissed in the rain. For a moment, Jack just lay there, the woman unconscious across his chest, staring up at the storm-dark sky, and thanking whoever might be listening that they were both still breathing. Then he heard it, the voice he loved more than anything in the world, high and terrified. "Dad! Dad!" Lily was running toward him across the field, her small form barely visible in the darkness and rain. "I'm okay," Jack called out, pushing himself to sitting despite the pain in his back. "Lily, I'm okay." She crashed into him, sobbing, her arms wrapping around his neck so tight he could barely breathe. "You scared me so bad. You scared me so bad, Dad. I thought, I know, baby. I know. But I'm here. We're okay." He held her with one arm, the other still supporting the unconscious woman. "We need to get inside. Help me with her." Together, father and daughter half-carried, half-dragged the woman toward the farmhouse. She groaned, once her eyelids fluttering but not opening. Jack's mind raced through triage protocols he'd learned in the service. Head wound, possible concussion, broken arm, probably bruised ribs. She needed a hospital, needed it soon. They got her inside and laid her on the couch. Jack ran to get towels, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was starting to fade. He grabbed the emergency medical kit he kept under the bathroom sink, a habit from his army days, and returned to find Lily kneeling beside the couch, staring at the injured woman with wide eyes. "Is she going to die?" Lily whispered. "Not if I can help it." Jack's voice was firmer than he felt. He pressed a clean towel to the gash on the woman's forehead, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. "Lily, I need you to call 911. Tell them we need an ambulance and the fire department. Can you do that for me?" Lily nodded and ran for the phone. Jack worked quickly, efficiently, falling into the rhythm of emergency care. Check the airway clear. Breathing shallow, but steady. Pulse rapid but strong. He couldn't do anything about the broken arm without risking more damage, but he could try to stabilize it. Keep her warm, treat for shock. The woman's eyes opened. They were brown, almost black in the dim light from the camping lantern Lily had lit. Confused. Pain-filled, but conscious. She stared at Jack like she couldn't quite process what she was seeing. "Hey there," Jack said softly, his voice taking on that calm, steady tone he'd used with wounded soldiers. "You're safe now. You were in a plane crash, but you're safe. My name is Jack. You're in my house. Try not to move." "Okay. Help is coming." She opened her mouth, tried to speak. Nothing came out but a rasp. Jack grabbed a glass of water from the kitchen, helped her take small sips. "Thank you." The words were barely audible, but they carried weight. She was looking at him with an intensity that made Jack uncomfortable, like she was trying to memorize his face. "Don't try to talk. Just rest. The ambulance will be here soon." "My plane." She struggled to sit up. Jack gently pushed her back down. "The plane's gone. It exploded. I'm sorry." Something flickered in her eyes, not quite fear, but a cousin of it. "The data briefcase." Ma'am, with respect, I don't care about your briefcase. I care about keeping you alive. Everything else can wait. She closed her eyes again, but Jack saw a tear slide down her temple. Lily came back, her voice shaky. They said 20 minutes. The storm's making it hard to get emergency vehicles out. 20 minutes. Jack assessed the woman again. She'd probably make it 20 minutes. Probably. Lily, grab some blankets. We need to keep her warm. As Lily ran upstairs, the woman's eyes opened again. What's your name? Jack Reynolds. That's my daughter Lily. Jack? She was struggling to stay conscious. Have to tell you. Not accident. What do you mean? But her eyes were closing again, her body going limp. Jack checked her pulse. Still there, still strong, and realized she'd just lost consciousness again. Whatever she'd been trying to say would have to wait. The next 20 minutes felt like hours. Jack monitored her breathing, kept pressure on the head wound, tried not to think about the burning wreckage in his field or the fact that he'd just run into an exploding plane like some kind of action hero. The shaking in his hands got worse. His chest felt tight. He recognized the signs of an oncoming panic attack pushed them down through sheer force of will. Not now, not in front of Lily. The ambulance arrived in 17 minutes. The paramedics, a young guy named Marcus and a woman named Angela, who looked like she'd seen everything, took one look at the woman and went into high-efficiency mode. Good work with the field dressing, Angela said to Jack, checking the woman's vitals. You military, Army, helicopter mechanic. Long time ago. It shows. You probably saved her life. Angela looked up at him, and Jack saw the professional respect in her eyes. We need to get her to county medical. You riding with us? I can't. My daughter. I'll stay with her, Lily said quickly. It's okay, Dad. Go. Jack looked at his 12-year-old daughter, so brave and scared and trying to be strong for him the way he tried to be strong for her, and felt his heart break a little. Absolutely not. I'm not leaving you alone. Mr. Reynolds, Angela said gently. She might have information the doctors need. About allergies, medical conditions, anything. You're the only one who can tell them what happened. Jack looked from the paramedics to Lily to the unconscious woman. The woman who'd said it wasn't an accident. What the hell did that mean? There's a deputy outside, Marcus added. He can stay with your daughter until you get back. Standard procedure for a plane crash anyway. They'll need to take your statement. Lily grabbed his hand. Go, Dad. I'll be fine. I'll call Mrs. Patterson next door if I need anything. Jack made a decision he'd probably regret. Okay, but Lily, I know. Doors locked. Phone closed, stranger danger. I got it, Dad. I'm not 6. The ambulance ride was a blur. Jack sat in the back watching the paramedics work on the woman, the mystery woman from the plane crash, the woman who'd said it wasn't an accident. Her vitals stayed stable. Her broken arm had been splinted. The head wound had stopped bleeding. You know who she is? Marcus asked, checking her pupils with a penlight. Never seen her before in my life. Well, you picked a good one to save. Marcus gestured to the woman's wrist where an expensive-looking smartwatch was still somehow intact. That's a custom neural interface watch. They cost about 50 grand. And look at her jacket, that's Armani, I think. This lady's got money. Jack looked at the woman. Really looked at her for the first time without the urgency of keeping her alive. Her suit, even torn and bloodstained, was clearly expensive. Her hands were manicured soft. She wore no wedding ring, but there was a thin gold necklace around her neck, half hidden by her collar. Even unconscious and injured, she had an aura of authority, of power. Who are you? Jack whispered. She didn't answer, but as the ambulance pulled into the emergency bay at County Medical Center, her eyes opened one more time. She looked directly at Jack, and this time her gaze was clear-focused. Jack Reynolds, she said, her voice stronger now. I won't. Forget this. Then the ER team swarmed in, and she was gone, wheeled away on a gurney into the bright lights and controlled chaos of the emergency room. A nurse with tired eyes handed Jack a clipboard. "We need information on the patient. Name, insurance, next of kin." "I don't know any of that. I just pulled her out of a plane crash." The nurse blinked. "You're the one who saved her." "I guess." "Dr. Morrison," the nurse called out. A man in scrubs, middle-aged, with gray at his temples, turned. "This is the guy who pulled her out." Dr. Morrison walked over, and Jack saw something shift in the man's expression. Surprise, maybe respect. "You got her out of the plane before it exploded?" "Yes, sir." "That was either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Jack admitted. "Well, brave or stupid, she's alive because of you. We'll take good care of her." The doctor paused. "But we're going to need someone to identify her, notify her family. You're sure you don't know her?" "Never seen her before tonight." "Okay, we'll run her prints, check dental records if we have to. In the meantime, there are some people who want to talk to you." "People?" Dr. Morrison nodded toward the waiting room. "Federal Aviation Administration. They're already here asking questions about the crash. And..." He lowered his voice. "Between you and me, this whole situation is strange. That plane should never have been in the air tonight. Every airport in a 100-mile radius issued no-fly warnings because of the storm. So either your mystery woman is reckless or something else is going on." Jack remembered her words, not accident. "What do you mean something else?" But the doctor was already being pulled away by another nurse, another emergency. Jack stood alone in the corridor, soaked to the bone, covered in mud and ash and dried blood that wasn't his, while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the antiseptic smell of the hospital filled his lungs. His phone rang. "Lily." "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you?" "There's a deputy here. He's nice. He said the fire department has the fire under control." "Dad." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What's going on? This is really weird, right?" "Yeah," Jack said quietly, watching through the ER doors as nurses and doctors swarmed around the mystery woman's room. "Yeah, baby. This is really weird." He didn't know it yet, but in that moment, standing in the emergency room with questions piling up like storm clouds, Jack Reynolds's ordinary life, his small, struggling, barely hanging on life, was ending. And something else, something bigger and more dangerous and more wonderful than he could imagine, was about to begin. In the ER room, the mystery woman lay connected to machines that beeped and hummed. Her eyes were closed, but her mind was racing. She was alive. Against all odds, against sabotage and storm and fire, she was alive. Because of Jack Reynolds. A man she didn't know. A man who'd risked everything for a stranger. Alexandra Chen, billionaire, CEO of Horizon Technologies, one of the most powerful people in the world of tech innovation, made a decision in that hospital bed. When morning came, when her people arrived with their questions and protocols and security measures, she would do something she rarely did. She would pay a debt. And Jack Reynolds, the struggling single father who just wanted to keep his daughter safe and his bills paid, had no idea that saving one life was about to change too. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside County Medical Center, in rooms separated by walls and circumstance, and vast chasms of wealth and power, two people waited for morning. Neither of them slept. Dawn came slowly to Kansas, the storm finally exhausted, and the sky turning the color of old pewter. Jack sat in the hospital waiting room, his third cup of terrible coffee going cold in his hands when the men in suits arrived. There were 4 of them, moving with the coordinated precision of people who work together often. 3 men, 1 woman, all wearing dark suits that probably cost more than Jack's truck. They didn't check in at the desk. They didn't wait. They walked straight through the emergency room doors like they owned the place, and maybe they did. Jack stood up, his back protesting after hours in the plastic chair. One of the men, tall, black, with silver at his temples and eyes that missed nothing, spotted him immediately and changed direction. "Mr. Reynolds." The man's voice was deep, authoritative. Not unkind, but not exactly friendly either. "That's me. Special Agent Marcus Webb, FBI." He flashed a badge so quickly, Jack barely saw it. "We need to ask you some questions about last night. I already talked to the FAA investigator and the local deputy and the hospital security guard who seemed to think I was lying about the whole thing." Jack was too tired for patience. "Look, I pulled a woman out of a burning plane. That's all I know." "That woman is Alexandra Chen." Webb said it like the name should mean something. Jack's blank stare must have said enough. "You really don't know who she is?" The agent sounded almost amused. "Should I?" Webb pulled out his phone, showed Jack a photo. It was her, the mystery woman, but in the picture she was polished, powerful, standing at a podium with the Horizon Technologies logo behind her. Her hair was perfect, her suit was immaculate. She looked like she could buy and sell entire cities before breakfast. "Alexandra Chen," Webb repeated. "CEO of Horizon Technologies, net worth approximately $12 billion. She's one of the most influential people in tech innovation. And someone tried to kill her last night." The waiting room suddenly felt too small, too bright. Jack sat down hard in the plastic chair. "What?" "The plane crash wasn't an accident, Mr. Reynolds. Preliminary analysis shows the fuel line was tampered with. Expertly done, meant to look like mechanical failure, but our people found the evidence within an hour of examining the wreckage." Webb sat down beside him, his voice dropping. "Ms. Chen has enemies, people who want her dead, and you just saved her life, which means we need to make sure you're safe too." Jack thought of Lily alone at home with a deputy he didn't know. His mouth went dry. "My daughter is fine. We already have 2 agents at your property." Webb's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Reynolds, I know this is overwhelming, but Ms. Chen is awake now, and she's asking for you." The hospital room was nothing like the chaotic emergency bay from last night. This was private, quiet, expensive looking, even by hospital standards. Alexandra Chen sat propped up in the bed, her left arm in a cast, bandages wrapped around her head, but her eyes were clear and sharp. Those eyes locked onto Jack the moment he walked in. "Mr. Reynolds." Her voice was stronger now, cultured with the faintest trace of an accent Jack couldn't place. "Please, sit." Jack remained standing. "They tell me someone tried to kill you." "Direct, I appreciate that." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Yes, someone did. And you prevented them from succeeding." "I just did what anyone would do." "No." The word was firm, absolute. "Most people would have called 911 and waited. You ran into a burning plane. There's a difference." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "You said something last night. In my house. You said it wasn't an accident." "I knew the moment the engine failed. I've flown that plane 200 times. I know every sound, every vibration. What happened last night was sabotage." She paused, studying him. "The question is, what happens now?" "Now you go back to your billion-dollar life, and I go back to my farm." "It's not that simple. The people who did this, they're thorough. They'll know I survived. They'll know someone pulled me from the wreckage. They'll know about you." Alexandra's gaze was steady, unflinching. "I can offer you protection. Round-the-clock security relocation if necessary." "No." Jack's voice was flat. "I appreciate the concern, but my daughter and I have a life here. We don't need—" "Mr. Reynolds." "Jack? May I call you Jack?" She didn't wait for an answer. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering survival. These people tried to drop a plane out of the sky. They won't hesitate to eliminate loose ends." The door opened. A woman walked in, Asian mid-30s, carrying herself with military bearing and wearing an earpiece. "Ms. Chen, the security detail is in place. The house is clear." "Thank you, Lynn." Alexandra turned back to Jack. "Please, let me at least repay you for your hospitality." My people tell me you brought me to your home, cared for me. The least I can do is meet your daughter properly. May I? Jack wanted to say no, wanted to walk out of this hospital, go home, pretend last night never happened. But he looked at this woman, this stranger who someone wanted dead, and saw something in her eyes that surprised him. Vulnerability. Real fear hiding behind the confidence. You should rest, he said finally. I've been resting. What I need is to see daylight, breathe air that doesn't smell like antiseptic, and thank the person who saved my life in a place that isn't a hospital room. Alexandra's voice softened. Please, Jack. I promise we won't intrude on your life more than necessary. 4 hours later, Jack stood in his own kitchen and watched Alexandra Chen look around his modest farmhouse like it was a museum exhibit. She'd insisted on leaving the hospital against medical advice, signed a dozen forms, and arrived at his farm in a convoy of black SUVs that looked ridiculous parked next to his rusty pickup. Now she sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he and Lily ate breakfast every morning wearing borrowed clothes because everything she'd had was destroyed in the crash. One of her assistants had procured jeans and a simple blue sweater from somewhere. Without the power suits and polish, she looked younger, more human. Lily stood in the doorway, eyes wide, taking in the billionaire sitting in their kitchen like this was a normal Tuesday. Lily, Jack said gently. This is Ms. Chen. She's the woman from the plane crash. Call me Alexandra, please. She smiled at Lily, and Jack saw something genuine in that smile. Your father saved my life. I wanted to thank you both properly. You're really a billionaire. Lily's voice was small, awed. I'm really a person who builds technology. The money is just a side effect. Alexandra's gaze took in the kitchen, the old appliances, the cracked linoleum, the refrigerator covered in Lily's drawings and school papers. Your father tells me you're interested in engineering. Lily's face lit up. I want to design planes. Dad says I'm too young to decide, but I know what I want. Your father is being cautious. That's his job. But you're never too young to dream. Alexandra shifted in her chair, wincing slightly. The pain medication was wearing off. I started coding when I was 10. Everyone said it was too hard, that I should focus on something more practical. I didn't listen. Jack made coffee, listening to them talk. It was surreal, this woman worth billions, sitting in his kitchen discussing flight mechanics with his 12-year-old daughter, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The security team waited outside, discreet but present. Through the window, Jack could see them positioned around the property, professionals doing their job. Dad taught me about helicopters, Lily was saying. How the rotors work, the mechanical systems. But planes are different. The fixed wings, the way they generate lift. Would you like to see something? Alexandra pulled out her phone. Not the expensive smartwatch from last night, but a new device sleeker than anything Jack had seen. She tapped the screen, and a holographic blueprint appeared above the table, rotating slowly. This is the plane I was flying. Or rather, what's left of the design. Lily gasped. Jack moved closer, his mechanic's brain automatically analyzing the schematic. You designed this yourself? He asked. Every component. I don't trust other people's engineering when my life depends on it. Alexandra's voice turned bitter. Apparently, I should have been more careful about who I trusted with maintenance. The hologram showed the fuel system, and even Jack could see where something was wrong. A valve that shouldn't have been there, a redundancy removed. They knew exactly what they were doing, he said quietly. Yes. Someone with access, with knowledge, with motive. Alexandra closed the hologram. But that's not your concern. I came here to say thank you, not to burden you with my problems. Ms. Chen. Alexandra. Alexandra. This is my daughter's home. If there's even a chance that what happened to you could affect her... Jack's voice was steel. Then it is my concern. Their eyes met across the kitchen table. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding maybe. a recognition of what it meant to protect the people you loved. The security team will remain on your property for 72 hours, Alexandra said finally. After that, I'll reassess the threat level. If you need anything at all, you call this number. She handed him a card. It was heavy, expensive paper with nothing but a phone number embossed in silver. I don't need Jack. She said his name with unexpected gentleness. You pulled me from a burning plane. Let me give you a phone number. It's not charity, it's basic human decency. Lily was watching them both, her sharp mind clearly working through the subtext. Are you going to stay here in our house? Alexandra smiled. No, sweetheart. I have people who need me back in San Francisco, but I wanted to see where I spent last night meet you both properly. Your father, he gave me something I'd forgotten existed. What's that? Lily asked. Hope that there are still good people in the world. They talked for another hour. Alexandra asked about the farm, about Lily's school, about Jack's work. She listened. Really listened in a way that surprised him. This wasn't polite small talk. She seemed genuinely curious about their ordinary lives, their small struggles, the price of corn futures and parent-teacher conferences. When Lily mentioned her science project on renewable energy, Alexandra's whole demeanor changed. She leaned forward, ignoring the pain from her injuries, and started sketching ideas on a napkin. Jack watched his daughter's face transform with excitement, watched her talk to this brilliant stranger about concepts he barely understood. You could use a micro-grid system, Alexandra was saying. Solar panels here, wind turbine here, battery storage underground. For a 40-acre farm, you'd need approximately... She trailed off, looking embarrassed. I'm sorry, I get carried away. This is your home, your project. I shouldn't... No, Lily said quickly. It's amazing. Could that really work? Could we really power the whole farm on renewable energy? Technically, yes. Financially. Alexandra glanced at Jack, and he saw understanding in her eyes. She knew without him saying a word that solar panels and wind turbines weren't in his budget. It would require significant upfront investment. The moment stretched awkwardly. Jack felt the familiar shame of not being able to give his daughter everything she deserved. But, Alexandra continued smoothly, what matters is understanding the principles, the engineering. Once you know how it works, you can build anything. Money is just money. Knowledge is power. Lily nodded, but Jack saw the disappointment in her eyes. She was 12, old enough to understand their financial reality. Lynn appeared in the doorway. Ms. Chen, the doctor called. You need to take your medication and rest. The board meeting is in 3 hours, and you promised... I know what I promised. Alexandra stood, moving carefully. Jack, Lily, thank you for your hospitality. Truly. She started toward the door, then paused, turned back. Jack, could I speak with you privately for a moment? They stepped onto the porch. The morning sun was climbing higher, burning off the last of the storm's clouds. The cornfield was a ruin, blackened stalks, a crater where the plane had hit, yellow tape marking where the FBI was still processing the crash site. Your daughter is brilliant, Alexandra said. I know. She could do amazing things, with the right opportunities, the right education. I know that too. Jack's voice was tight. I'm doing the best I can. I'm not criticizing you. Alexandra looked out at the damaged field. I'm apologizing. For what? For having so much when you have so little. For being the reason your cornfield is destroyed. For bringing danger to your doorstep. She met his eyes. And for what I'm about to ask you. Jack waited. Let me help. Not with money, I know you'll refuse that. But let me help Lily. A scholarship to a private school that specializes in engineering. Full ride, no strings attached. She'd still live here with you, but she'd have access to resources, teachers' equipment she can't get in a rural Kansas public school. Why? Jack's voice was rough. Why do you care? Because 15 years ago, I was her. Brilliant, curious, stuck in a place where no one understood what I could do. Someone gave me a chance. I want to pay that forward. Alexandra pulled out another card, pressed it into his hand. Think about it. That's all I ask. Just think about it. The SUVs were waiting. Her security team materialized from various positions around the property, moving into formation. Alexandra walked toward the vehicles, then stopped one more time. Jack. Yeah. You ask me why I care. The truth is, I spent 20 years building an empire. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I have power, influence, all the things people say matter. Her voice dropped. But I forgot what it feels like to have someone risk everything for you expecting nothing in return. You reminded me. So thank you. For saving my life, yes. But also for reminding me what actually matters. She got into the SUV. The convoy rolled down the long driveway, leaving nothing but dust and questions in their wake. Lily came out onto the porch. Is she really going to help me? I don't know, baby. Do you trust her? Jack thought about that. About the woman in the expensive suit who'd sat at their kitchen table drinking instant coffee. About the way she'd looked at Lily like she saw herself. About the vulnerability hidden behind the power. Yeah, he said finally. I think maybe I do. They went back inside. Jack made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, the same thing they ate every morning. But something had changed. The house felt different, like Alexandra Chen had left an imprint just by being there. Jack's phone rang, an unknown number. Mr. Reynolds. A crisp, professional voice. This is Elizabeth Park, Ms. Chen's executive assistant. I'm calling to follow up on the scholarship Ms. Chen discussed with you. That was 10 minutes ago. Ms. Chen doesn't wait once she's made a decision. I'm sending you information packets for 3 schools, all within driving distance of your home, all with full scholarship programs. If you're interested, we can arrange tours this week. Jack sat down heavily at the kitchen table. This is real. Ms. Chen is many things, Mr. Reynolds. A liar isn't one of them. Elizabeth's voice warmed slightly. She called me from the car. She was very specific. Your daughter deserves opportunities. She wants to provide them. No strings, no obligations. Just a chance. After he hung up, Jack stared at his phone for a long time. Lily was watching him with those dark eyes. Sarah's eyes full of hope and fear, and the desperate wish to believe good things could happen to people like them. The schools are sending information, he said. Lily threw her arms around him, and Jack held his daughter while she cried happy tears into his shoulder. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The damaged cornfield would need to be replowed, replanted. The bills would still come. Life would still be hard. But for the first time in 4 years since Sarah died, and the world went dark, Jack Reynolds felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. That night, after Lily went to bed clutching printouts of 3 different schools, Jack sat on the porch with a beer he couldn't really afford and looked at the stars. His phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number Alexandra had given him. I meant what I said, about help, about being there. You saved my life. That means something to me. A. Jack typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on simple truth. You gave my daughter hope. We're even. The response came immediately. Hope is priceless. We're not even close to even. Sleep well, Jack Reynolds. You've earned it. But Jack didn't sleep well. He lay awake thinking about billionaires and burning planes, about sabotage and security teams, about the strange twist of fate that had brought Alexandra Chen crashing into his life. She'd said someone wanted her dead. She'd said they were thorough. Jack got up, checked the locks on all the doors and windows, looked in on Lily sleeping peacefully with her science textbooks scattered across the bed. The security team was still out there somewhere, watching, protecting. He went back to his room and pulled out the lockbox he kept under the bed. Inside was his service pistol, cleaned and maintained, even though he hadn't fired it in years. Just looking at it made his hands shake, brought back memories of Afghanistan and things he'd tried to forget. But if someone came for Alexandra Chen, if they came looking for loose ends, Jack Reynolds would be ready. He was a father first, a veteran second, and both of those things meant protecting what mattered, no matter the cost. Outside, the Kansas night was peaceful. The stars wheeled overhead indifferent to human drama. And in San Francisco, Alexandra Chen sat in her penthouse office, surrounded by screens and data, and the trappings of unimaginable wealth, thinking about a farmhouse kitchen and a man who'd risked everything for a stranger. She picked up her phone, scrolled through the security reports on Jack Reynolds. Single father, veteran, 2 jobs barely making ends meet, no criminal record, perfect credit until his wife died, then a cascade of medical debt and missed payments. A good man, broken by circumstance, held together by stubborn pride and love for his daughter. Alexandra made a decision. She called her head of security. "Lynn, I want full surveillance on Jack Reynolds and his daughter. Not intrusive, but thorough. If anyone even looks at them wrong, I want to know about it." "Already done, Ms. Chen." "Good. And Lynn, find out who sabotaged my plane. I don't care what it costs. I want names." "We're working on it. Work faster." Alexandra ended the call, then made another one. "Elizabeth, contact our people at MIT, Stanford, and Caltech. I want to know if they have any special programs for gifted students. Middle school age, engineering focus. For Lily Reynolds. Smart girl. Yes, for Lily and Elizabeth. This is personal, not business. Keep it quiet." As she hung up, Alexandra caught her reflection in the window bandages, cast exhaustion written in every line of her face. But she was smiling. Jack Reynolds had given her something more valuable than life. He'd given her purpose beyond profit margins and market share. He'd reminded her what it meant to be human. And Alexandra Chen always paid her debts. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. The security team left after 72 hours, just as Alexandra had promised. The FBI finished processing the crash site and hauled away the last of the wreckage, leaving Jack's cornfield looking like a war zone. The insurance adjuster came, took photos, promised a check that would barely cover a quarter of the lost crop. Life returned to something resembling normal. Jack working his 2 jobs, Lily going to school, the bills still piling up on the kitchen counter. But normal was a lie, and they both knew it. The schools had sent their packets. Jack had spread them across the kitchen table one night after Lily went to bed, staring at glossy brochures that promised futures he'd never imagined for his daughter. The Academy for Advanced Sciences, the Midwest Institute for Engineering Excellence, Franklin Preparatory School. Each one read like something from another world. State-of-the-art laboratories, renowned faculty, college placement rates that approached 100%. Full scholarships. All of them. Because Alexandra Chen had made a phone call. Jack had spent 3 nights wrestling with pride and practicality before finally sitting Lily down and letting her choose. She'd picked Franklin Prep, closest to home, with an aviation engineering program that made her eyes light up like Christmas morning. The acceptance came within 48 hours. Classes started in the fall. "She works fast," Jack had muttered to himself, holding the acceptance letter. His phone had buzzed immediately, as if Alexandra had heard him across 1,000 miles. "I don't believe in wasting time. Congratulations to Lily. She's earned this. A." That was how it went. Text messages at odd hours, always brief, always genuine. Alexandra checking in, asking about Lily's excitement, never mentioning the money or the strings that didn't exist. Sometimes she'd send photos of sunset from her office window, a prototype she was working on, once a picture of terrible hospital coffee with the caption, "Yours was better." Jack found himself looking forward to those messages more than he wanted to admit. Then on a Thursday morning, while Jack was framing a house in the June heat, his phone rang. Not a text, an actual call. Jack Reynolds. Her voice was crisp, energetic, alive in a way that made his heart do something complicated. "I have a proposition for you." That sounds ominous. "It's an invitation, not a threat. Horizon Technologies is launching a new product next month. I'd like you and Lily to be there." Jack wiped sweat from his forehead, squinted at the sun. "In San Francisco?" "Yes, all expenses paid. 2 nights at a hotel that doesn't have bedbugs, I promise. A chance for Lily to see what's possible, and—" Alexandra paused and Jack heard something careful in her voice. "A chance for me to properly thank you both." "You already thanked us. The scholarship is for Lily. This is for you." Another pause. "Please, Jack. I'd really like you to come." There was something in the way she said it, something vulnerable beneath the confidence that made Jack's defenses crumble. "Okay," he heard himself say. "We'll come." Lily's scream of joy when he told her could probably be heard in the next county. 2 weeks later, Jack Reynolds stood in a hotel room that cost more per night than he made in a week, watching his daughter press her face against floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked San Francisco Bay. The room had a marble bathroom, a bed so soft it felt like floating, and a minibar that Lily had investigated with scientific thoroughness before Jack explained that a candy bar wasn't worth $12. "Dad, there's a bridge." Lily pointed at the Golden Gate, barely visible through the evening fog. "And look at all the lights. It's like a whole city made of stars." Jack smiled, but his stomach was tight with nerves. The event was tomorrow night, a black tie gala at Horizon Technologies headquarters. Elizabeth Park had arranged everything, including the delivery of a tuxedo to their room that fit Jack so perfectly it had to have been custom-made. He'd stared at himself in the mirror, barely recognizing the man in the elegant suit. He looked like someone who belonged in this world. He looked like a fraud. His phone buzzed. "Alexandra. You made it. Good. Dinner tomorrow at 6 before the gala. Just the 3 of us. I want to show Lily something special." Jack texted back. "We're not dressed for fancy restaurants. Good thing I'm not taking you to one. Casual clothes, tennis shoes. Trust me." The next evening, a car arrived to take them not to some elegant restaurant, but to Horizon Technologies itself. The building was stunning, all glass and light rising 40 stories into the San Francisco twilight. But Alexandra met them at a side entrance wearing jeans and a Horizon Tech t-shirt, her arm still in a lighter, cast a baseball cap hiding most of the scar on her forehead. Lily. She hugged Jack's daughter like they were old friends. Then more carefully, she hugged Jack too. He caught the scent of her perfume, something subtle and expensive, and felt the warmth of her body against his before she stepped back. "Come on, I want to show you something before the circus starts." She led them through corridors that were empty of the usual weekday bustle, past laboratories with equipment Jack couldn't begin to identify until they reached an elevator that required both a keycard and a thumbprint to access. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, practically vibrating with excitement. "The place where impossible becomes possible." Alexandra smiled. The elevator descended, not up. Down deep into the building's underground levels. When the doors opened, Jack's breath caught. The workshop was enormous, easily the size of a football field. Workbenches covered in tools and components. Computer stations with screens showing complex schematics. And in the center, suspended from the ceiling by cables, was an aircraft unlike anything Jack had ever seen. "Is that a plane?" Lily whispered. "It's the prototype for the next generation of personal aircraft. Electric, fully automated, safe enough that anyone could pilot it." Alexandra walked forward, and Jack saw pride in every line of her body. "We're calling it the Horizon Wing. It's what I was working on when my plane was sabotaged." Jack moved closer, his mechanic's eye automatically analyzing the design. The wings were sleek, the body compact but elegant. But something about the control interface bothered him. "The neural interface," Alexandra continued, gesturing to a helmet-like device. "It reads the pilot's intentions and translates them into flight commands. For people with disabilities, for those who could never fly conventionally, this changes everything." Lily was already climbing the stepladder to peer inside the cockpit, asking questions faster than Alexandra could answer them. Jack circled the aircraft slowly, studying the engineering. "Can I see the interface specs?" he asked. Alexandra pulled up a holographic display. Jack studied it, frowning. "What is it?" she asked. "The neural sensors, you've got them positioned here and here." He pointed to the helmet design. "But if someone has limited head mobility, which I'm guessing is part of your target demographic, they'd struggle to achieve the full range of motion your system requires for complex maneuvers." Alexandra stared at him. "How did you—" "I worked on helicopter control systems for 8 years. Different tech, same principle. If you move the primary sensors to the hand controls and use the neural interface as a backup system instead of primary, you'd get better precision and more accessibility." Jack caught himself embarrassed. "Sorry, you're the genius billionaire. You're just someone who actually understands practical application versus theoretical design." Alexandra was already modifying the hologram, her fingers flying across the display. Show me exactly what you mean." For the next hour, Jack and Alexandra worked together. Lily watching with wide eyes as her father, her dad, who fixed houses and stocked shelves, collaborated with one of the world's most brilliant minds on technology that could change lives. Jack explained modifications based on his military experience. Alexandra translated them into design language, and slowly the hologram evolved into something better than either of them could have created alone. "This is incredible," Alexandra breathed, staring at the revised schematic. "Jack, this solves a problem my engineers have been struggling with for 6 months. How did you see it so quickly?" "Because I've held the hand of a pilot who lost the use of his legs and watched him cry because he thought he'd never fly again." Jack's voice was quiet. "Your technology is amazing, but technology without empathy is just expensive machinery." Alexandra looked at him with an expression Jack couldn't quite read, respect certainly, but something more. Something that made his pulse quicken. "Lily," she said, not taking her eyes off Jack. "How would you like to see where we test the prototypes?" They spent another hour in the workshop. Alexandra showed them innovations that wouldn't be public for years. Explained the science with a passion that made even complex concepts accessible, and listened, really listened, when Lily asked questions that any other adult might have dismissed as childish. Jack watched his daughter blossom under Alexandra's attention, watched her confidence grow with every answer, every encouragement. And he watched Alexandra saw how she lit up around Lily's enthusiasm, how she seemed younger, more alive than the polished CEO from the photographs. "We should get ready for the gala," Alexandra said finally, reluctantly. "But Jack—" She pulled him aside while Lily examined a drone prototype. "What you did tonight, your insights on the interface design, I'm crediting you in the presentation." "What number, Alexandra? I can't." "You can and you will. Your idea makes the technology better, more accessible. That's what matters." Her hand found his, squeezed gently. "Let me do this, please." The gala was everything Jack had feared and more. The main hall of Horizon Technologies had been transformed into something from a dream or a nightmare depending on your tax bracket. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, waiters in white coats carrying trays of champagne and appetizers that were more art than food. Men in tuxedos, women in gowns that cost more than Jack's truck. The air hummed with money and power and the casual arrogance of people who'd never worried about a bill in their lives. Jack felt like he was drowning. "Breathe," Alexandra murmured beside him. She'd changed into a stunning black gown that managed to be elegant even with her arm still casted. Her hair was styled perfectly, makeup flawless, every inch the powerful CEO. But when she looked at him, Jack saw the woman from his kitchen, the one who'd drunk instant coffee and talked about flight mechanics with genuine joy. "They're just people, Jack. Very rich, very boring people." "Easy for you to say. You're one of them." "No," she said softly. "I'm really not." Lily was in a dress that Elizabeth had somehow procured age-appropriate, but beautiful, making her look older than 12. She clutched Jack's hand as they moved through the crowd, eyes wide, taking in everything. "Dad," she whispered, "is that—" "Yes," Jack confirmed, spotting the actor from that superhero movie. "That's him. And over there." "Probably, I don't know. Smile and nod, baby. That's what I'm doing." Alexandra laughed, the sound drawing looks from nearby guests. Jack realized people were watching them, watching him, and trying to figure out who he was, why he warranted Alexandra Chen's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced over the sound system, "please take your seats. The presentation will begin in 5 minutes." The crowd flowed toward an auditorium that opened off the main hall. Jack found their seats front row because, of course, and tried not to feel like an imposter as tech industry giants and venture capitalists settled in around them. The lights dimmed. A screen descended from the ceiling, and Alexandra Chen walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She was magnificent, confident, brilliant, commanding the room with an ease that Jack envied. She spoke about innovation, about breaking barriers, about technology that served humanity rather than the other way around. The horizon wing appeared on the screen behind her, rotating slowly, beautiful and impossible. "This technology represents years of research, millions of dollars in development, and the combined genius of our incredible team," Alexandra said. "But sometimes the best innovations come from unexpected places, from people who see problems not as engineers, but as humans." Jack's stomach dropped. "Tonight I want to credit someone who made this technology better. Someone who reminded me that brilliance isn't about degrees or credentials. It's about insight, empathy, and the courage to speak up even when you think no one's listening." Alexandra's eyes found his in the audience. "Jack Reynolds, could you stand, please?" The spotlight swung toward him. Jack froze. "Stand up, Dad," Lily whispered, pushing at him. "Go on." Jack stood on legs that felt like water. The entire room was looking at him. Hundreds of people, cameras flashing. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might crack a rib. "Mr. Reynolds is a veteran, a father, and an aircraft mechanic who saved my life when my plane crashed 3 weeks ago." Alexandra's voice carried across the silent room. "Last night, in about 15 minutes, he solved a design problem that had stumped my team for 6 months. His insights made the horizon wing not just possible, but accessible. The neural interface you're seeing tonight works because Jack Reynolds understood something my engineers missed, that the best technology serves the people who need it most." The applause started slow, then built. Jack stood there, overwhelmed, embarrassed, proud, terrified. Lily was crying happy tears beside him. And on stage, Alexandra Chen smiled at him like he'd hung the moon. The presentation continued. The Horizon Wing's capabilities were demonstrated through simulations that made the audience gasp. Alexandra talked about applications, medical transport, disaster relief, accessibility for the disabled. She was selling a vision of the future, and the room was buying it. Then, as the presentation neared its end, something changed. Alexandra's head of security, Lynn, appeared at the side of the stage. Even from the front row, Jack could see the tension in her body. She whispered something to Alexandra. The color drained from Alexandra's face. "I apologize," Alexandra said smoothly, her voice not betraying whatever she'd just heard. "We need to take a brief intermission. Please enjoy the refreshments. We'll resume shortly." The lights came up. Confused murmuring filled the auditorium. Alexandra walked off stage, Lynn beside her, their body language screaming emergency. Jack's combat instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He turned to Lily. "Stay here. Don't move." "Dad." "Lily, stay. Here." He used his command voice, the one that meant no arguments. Then he was moving, following Alexandra's path, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon he wasn't carrying. He found them in a hallway behind the stage. Alexandra, Lynn, and 2 other security personnel huddled around a tablet. Alexandra's hands were shaking. "What's wrong?" Jack asked. They all turned. Lynn stepped forward, protective. "Mr. Reynolds, this is a private—" "It's okay." Alexandra's voice was hollow. Jack, someone just sent me this. She held out the tablet. On the screen was a photo. It took Jack's brain a moment to process what he was seeing. It was him and Lily, walking into the hotel yesterday. The angle was wrong, taken from across the street. Professional. Calculated. There are more, Alexandra said. She swiped. Another photo. Jack carrying coffee in his hotel room. Another. Lily looking out the window. Another. Jack and Alexandra in the workshop last night, visible through a window he hadn't noticed. They're watching us, Jack said, his voice flat cold. They've been watching you for 3 weeks. These are just the ones they wanted me to see. Alexandra's hands clenched around the tablet. Along with a message. She showed him. Simple, direct, terrifying. Loose ends get tied up. Tell your hero to back off, or his daughter learns to fly the hard way. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Jack's vision tunneled. Somewhere far away, he heard himself breathing too fast, felt the familiar tightness in his chest that meant a panic attack was coming. But beneath the fear was something colder, harder. Rage. Get Lily, he said. Get her now. Get her somewhere safe. Jack, now. He didn't mean to shout, didn't mean to grab Alexandra's shoulders, but Lily was out there unprotected and someone had just threatened to kill his daughter. They know where we are. They know where she's sitting. Get her somewhere safe, or I swear to God, already done. Lynn was speaking into her wrist comm. Team 3, secure the girl. Front row right side. Move now. Code red. Through the hallway entrance, Jack saw security personnel in evening wear converging on Lily's seat. She looked confused, then frightened as they surrounded her. Bring her backstage, Alexandra ordered. Then to Jack, her voice gentle despite the crisis. She's safe. I promise. My people are the best. She's safe. Jack couldn't breathe. The hallway was closing in. His hands were shaking. This was Afghanistan again, was Sarah's accident. Again was every nightmare he'd ever had about failing to protect the people he loved. Jack, look at me. Alexandra's hands cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. Breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. With me. In. Out. In. Out. He followed her voice like a lifeline, breathing in sync with her, until the panic receded enough that he could think. I'm sorry, he managed. Don't you dare apologize. Your daughter was just threatened. You're allowed to panic. She kept her hands on his face, her touch grounding him. But we need to make decisions now. Clear-headed decisions. Lily burst into the hallway, surrounded by security. Dad, what's happening? They said... Jack pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she squeaked. It's okay, baby. Everything's okay. But it wasn't okay, and they all knew it. Alexandra dismissed the security, except for Lynn, then pulled up additional messages on her tablet. The photos came from an encrypted account. Lynn's people are tracing it, but these people are professionals. They know what they're doing. Who are they? Jack's voice was steady, now cold. I have enemies. Competitors who want my technology. Foreign governments who want my research. Corporate rivals who'd benefit from my death. Alexandra's laugh was bitter. Take your pick. You said you'd find out who sabotaged your plane. We have leads, nothing concrete. But this, she gestured at the photos. This confirms they're still active, still watching, still willing to kill. Lynn spoke up. Ms. Chen, we need to move you to a secure location, and the Reynolds family needs protection. No. Jack's voice was flat. We're going home. Tonight. We disappear and you people stay the hell away from us. Jack, my daughter's life was just threatened because I pulled you out of a burning plane. The words came out harder than he intended. I get it now. You're toxic. Everything around you is dangerous. So we're done. We're going home. Lily's going to her new school and we forget this ever happened. The hurt that flashed across Alexandra's face was like a physical blow. But Jack couldn't afford to care. Lily came first. Lily always came first. I understand, Alexandra said quietly. But Jack, going home doesn't make you safe. They know where you live. They've been watching your house for weeks. The only way to protect Lily is to stay close, stay secured, and let my people do their job. Or we run, disappear, change our names. You'd do that. Alexandra's voice was gentle. Give up your home, your job, Lily's scholarship, everything to run from shadows. What kind of life is that? Jack had no answer. Because she was right. Running meant losing everything they'd built, everything they had left. There's another option, Alexandra said. Stay, work with me. Let me hire you, give you resources, protection. We find these people together, and we end this, for both of us. You want to hire me? Jack laughed, the sound broken. To do what? I'm a construction worker. You're a veteran with combat experience, an aircraft mechanic with practical genius, and a man who runs toward danger instead of away from it. I want you as head of practical applications for Horizon Technologies. You'd work directly with me testing prototypes, identifying real-world problems, making my impossible ideas actually functional. It's a real job, Jack. Not charity. You'd earn every penny. How much? The question came out before he could stop it. $200,000 a year to start. Full benefits. Housing in San Francisco or remote work if you prefer to stay in Kansas. Lily gets into any school she wants anywhere in the world, fully funded. Jack's knees went weak. $200,000. More money than he'd made in the last 5 years combined. That's insane, he whispered. That's market rate for someone with your skills and security clearance. Alexandra stepped closer. But more than that, it's a partnership. You and me working together, making things that matter, and keeping each other alive while we do it. Why? Jack's voice cracked. Why do you care so much? Alexandra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft, vulnerable in a way he'd never heard. Because when I was lying in that burning plane, I thought about my empire, my billions, my legacy, and none of it mattered. I was going to die alone, having built everything and connected to nothing. Then you appeared, a stranger who risked his life for mine, expecting nothing. You reminded me that there's more to life than building empires, and She stopped, swallowed hard. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. The hallway was silent except for the distant sound of the gala continuing without them. Lily watched them both with eyes too old for 12, understanding more than either adult wanted her to. Dad, she said quietly, I'm scared. But I'm more scared of running forever, of never knowing if they're still out there, of living in fear. She took a shaky breath. Ms. Chen saved us too. The scholarship, the opportunities, she gave us hope. Maybe we should let her help. Jack looked at his daughter, so brave, so impossibly brave. Then at Alexandra, this brilliant, complicated woman who'd crashed into their lives and changed everything. If I do this, he said slowly. If we do this, Lily's safety comes first. Before your company, before your technology, before everything. She gets pulled out the second things get dangerous. Non-negotiable. Agreed, Alexandra said immediately. And I want regular updates on the investigation. No secrets. If you know something, I know something. Done. And we're partners. Equals. I don't care how many billions you have. When it comes to protecting our people, we work together. Alexandra smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. I wouldn't have it any other way. She held out her hand. Jack stared at it for a long moment, knowing that shaking it meant crossing a threshold, stepping into a world he didn't understand, risking everything on a woman he barely knew. But he'd run into a burning plane for a stranger. This wasn't so different. He took her hand. Okay, he said. Let's catch these bastards. The penthouse was on the 42nd floor of a building that didn't officially exist in any public records. Lynn had explained this to Jack during the midnight drive through San Francisco's empty streets, her voice clinical and detached as she detailed the security measures, biometric scanners, electromagnetic shielding, bulletproof glass exits that led to a private helicopter pad on the roof. Jack had stopped listening after bulletproof focusing, instead on Lily asleep in the back seat, her head against his shoulder, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. Now standing in a living room that was bigger than his entire farmhouse, Jack watched the city lights spread below them like fallen stars and wondered what the hell he'd gotten them into. "The bedrooms are through there," Alexandra said, pointing to a hallway. She'd changed out of her gown into comfortable clothes, yoga pants, and an oversized sweater that made her look younger, more vulnerable. "Lily should take the one on the right. It has blackout curtains and a lock on the inside. You're across the hall." "Where will you be?" "Here. Working." She gestured to a wall of screens that had materialized from what Jack had thought was just sleek paneling. Already they displayed data he couldn't begin to decipher. Security feeds, financial records, facial recognition scans, running through thousands of images per second. "Lynn's team is tracking the source of those photos. I want answers before sunrise." Jack carefully transferred Lily to the bedroom, tucking her into a bed so soft it seemed to swallow her small form. He stood there for a long moment, watching her sleep, his hand resting on the service pistol Lynn had given him, with a look that said she knew exactly how to use it and expected him to as well. When he returned to the living room, Alexandra had coffee waiting. Real coffee. Not the instant stuff from his kitchen, rich and dark, and probably worth more per pound than he wanted to know. "You should sleep," she said, but she was saying it to her screens. Her fingers flying across a tablet, pulling up reports, and cross-referencing data with the kind of manic energy Jack recognized from his military days. The energy of someone running on pure adrenaline and refusing to crash. "So should you." "Can't. Not until I know who's threatening my—" She stopped, corrected herself. "Threatening you and Lily." Jack sat down on the couch beside her close enough that he could see the lines of exhaustion around her eyes, the way her hand trembled slightly as she swiped through screens. Close enough to smell that subtle perfume again, mixed now with fear, sweat, and determination. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "Patterns. Money trails. Anyone who's made significant moves against Horizon Technologies in the last 6 months." She pulled up a list of names, companies' dollar amounts that made Jack's head spin. The plain sabotage was sophisticated, professional. That means money, resources, and inside access to my maintenance crew. Inside access? Jack's combat training kicked in. "You think someone at Horizon did this?" "I think someone at Horizon was paid to look the other way, while someone else did this." Alexandra's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. 43 people have direct access to my private hangar. We've been investigating all of them, but whoever did this was smart. No unusual bank deposits, no suspicious contacts, nothing obvious." "What about not obvious?" Alexandra looked at him. "What do you mean?" "In Afghanistan, we learned that the best intel came from watching the small things. A guy who suddenly had expensive sunglasses when his family was starving. A village elder who started avoiding eye contact. People change when they're hiding something, but not always in big ways." Jack gestured to her screens. "You're looking at bank accounts and phone records. But what about behavior? Who called in sick the day before your plane went down? Who took vacation time right after? Who's been acting different?" Alexandra's fingers paused over the tablet. Then slowly, she started pulling up different data employee schedules, attendance records, performance reviews. Her eyes scanned faster than Jack could follow her brilliant mind processing information at a speed that would have been intimidating if it wasn't so focused on keeping them alive. "Marcus Webb," she said suddenly. "He called in sick 3 days before the crash. First sick day in 2 years. The FBI agent." Different Marcus. Marcus Chen, no relation, one of my senior engineers. Access to the hangar. Access to maintenance schedules. She pulled up his file. Mid-30s MIT graduate, 3 patents to his name, stellar reviews. But look at this. His performance review 6 months ago noted he seemed distracted and less engaged. His supervisor thought it was burnout. Or it was the start of someone turning him, Jack said quietly. Alexandra was already pulling up more data, Marcus Chen's financial records, his known associates, his digital footprint. And there, buried in the noise, was something. A LLC registered to a shell company, which connected to another shell company, which eventually traced back to someone whose name made Alexandra's breath catch. Richard Kane, she whispered. Who's that? My former partner, co-founder of Horizon Technologies. Alexandra's hand was shaking again, harder now. We had a falling out 5 years ago. He wanted to take the company in a different direction. Military contracts, surveillance technology, things I wouldn't agree to. I bought him out. He walked away with $3 billion and a vendetta. Vendetta enough to kill you? Richard always said I stole his dream. That Horizon should have been his legacy. She pulled up a photo, a man in his 50s, silver-haired, handsome in that polished way of very rich people. But his eyes were cold, calculating. He's been trying to compete with us ever since. Started his own company, Apex Dynamics. They're good but not good enough. Not without my research. Jack studied the photo, his military instincts screaming danger. If he wanted your research, why kill you? Why not just steal it? Because I don't keep detailed records. Everything important exists here. Alexandra tapped her head. In my mind. The neural interface designs the algorithm improvements, the breakthrough that makes the Horizon Wing possible. It's all me. If he can't have me alive and cooperative, he'd rather I was dead and the technology lost. That's insane. That's ego. Alexandra's laugh was bitter. Richard can't stand the thought of me succeeding where he failed. He'd rather destroy everything than watch me build what he couldn't. Lin appeared from somewhere, silent as a ghost. Ms. Chen, we've confirmed the link between Marcus Chen and Apex Dynamics. He received 2 payments in the last 3 months, routed through offshore accounts but traceable if you know where to look. Total of $500,000. Enough to sabotage a plane, Jack said. Enough to buy a lot of things. Alexandra stood pacing now, her mind clearly racing. But we still don't have proof. Nothing that would hold up in court. Richard's too smart for that. He'll have buffers, deniability lawyers who could argue a murder confession down to a parking ticket. Then we don't go to court, Jack said. Both women looked at him. What are you suggesting? Lin asked, her voice carefully neutral. I'm suggesting we make him come to us, on our terms, where we control the variables. Jack stood, moved to the window, thinking. He's watching us, right? He knows we're here. He's probably got people monitoring this building, so we give him what he wants. Which is me, scared, running, taking Lily, and disappearing like the threat said to do. Jack turned back to face them. We fake a fight. You and me, Alexandra. Public loud where his surveillance can pick it up. I act like I'm done. Like I'm taking my daughter and getting as far from you as possible. We make it look real. Alexandra's eyes widened with understanding. And when you run, he'll follow. Or he'll send people to follow, to make sure the loose end actually leaves town. And when he does, we grab them, make them talk, get the proof we need. That's using yourself as bait, Lin said flatly. That's using his arrogance against him. He thinks I'm just some farmer who got lucky. He won't expect me to have military training. Won't expect me to fight back. Jack's voice was cold, steady. And he definitely won't expect Lily and me to be equipped with trackers, body cameras, and a guardian angel watching from above. Lin looked at Alexandra. It could work, if we're careful, if we have full tactical support. Absolutely not, Alexandra said. Jack, I won't let you put yourself in danger. You don't let me do anything. I'm not your employee. Yet remember. Jack crossed the room, stood close enough to see the fear and frustration warring in her eyes. This is the best way. Maybe the only way. We draw him out, we finish this, and then Lily gets to go to school without looking over her shoulder. That's what matters. What matters is keeping you both alive. Then help me do this right. Jack's voice softened. You said we're partners, equals. So trust me. I've planned operations before. I know how to minimize risk. But we have to act fast before he changes tactics, before he decides that threatening isn't enough and moves to action. Alexandra stared at him for a long moment. Jack saw her brilliant mind working through scenarios, calculating odds, weighing his life against the possibility of ending the threat forever. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. If anything happens to you, it won't. Because you'll be watching. Because Lynn's team will be ready. Because we're going to be smarter than he is. Jack took her hand, felt it trembling in his. Trust me, Alexandra, please. She closed her eyes, took a breath, then nodded. Okay. But we do this my way. Full support, no improvising. And the second something goes wrong, you abort. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Lynn was already on her comm, pulling in her team, coordinating logistics. Jack watched the professional choreography of security personnel mobilizing and felt a familiar rush, the clarity that came with having a mission, a purpose, a clear enemy to fight. This was better than the formless dread. Better than jumping at shadows. This was action, and action he understood. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Lynn's team brought in equipment, micro cameras disguised as shirt buttons, GPS trackers the size of aspirin tablets, a panic beacon that would bring the entire security force down on his location within 90 seconds. They mapped out routes, established extraction points, ran through contingencies until Jack's head spun. Lily woke at dawn, found them still working. She took one look at the tactical maps and equipment spread across the coffee table, and her face went pale. What's happening? Jack went to her, knelt down so they were eye level. Baby, we have a plan. To stop the people who are threatening us. But it means I have to do something that might seem scary. What kind of something? He explained, keeping it simple but honest. Lily deserved the truth. She listened without interrupting, her dark eyes wide but dry. And when he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This is because of me, she said finally. They threatened me, so you're going to fix it. I'm going to end it, so you never have to be scared again. But you'll be scared while you're doing it. Jack couldn't lie to her. Yeah, probably. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, held on tight. Mom would be proud of you. She always said you were the bravest person she knew. Jack's throat closed up. He held his daughter, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment, every choice that had brought them from a quiet Kansas farmhouse to a San Francisco penthouse, planning an operation against a billionaire madman. I love you, Lily girl. I love you too, Dad. Come back safe. They staged the fight at noon in the parking garage where Alexandra kept her personal vehicles and where they knew Richard Kane's surveillance would be watching. Jack had wired himself up that morning, the micro camera hidden in his jacket, the GPS tracker swallowed with his breakfast, the panic beacon in his watch. He felt like a walking surveillance platform, and maybe that was appropriate. Alexandra drove them down in a sleek electric car that cost more than Jack's farm. Lynn followed in a separate vehicle with Lily, who'd been briefed and rebriefed until she could recite the plan in her sleep. The parking garage was concrete, and shadows, their voices echoing off pillars. This is insane, Jack shouted, putting real anger in his voice. Method acting, channeling every frustration, every fear. You said we'd be safe. You said your people would protect us. I'm doing everything I can. It's not enough. My daughter's life was threatened. Alexandra, because of you, because I saved you, because I got involved in your corporate war. He was pacing now, gesturing wildly. I'm done. We're leaving. Tonight. And I don't want to hear from you or Horizon Technologies ever again. Jack, please, if you leave now unprotected. We'll take our chances. At least running means we control our lives. Staying here means waiting for them to strike again. He went to the car, where Lily waited, his whole body radiating rejection. I should never have agreed to this. Should never have taken your money, your job offer, any of it. We were fine before you crashed into our lives. The words hung in the air, cruel and cutting. Jack saw the hurt flash across Alexandra's face and hated himself for putting it there, even if it was an act. Even if she knew it was an act. If that's what you want, she said quietly, her voice breaking exactly right. God, she was good at this. I'll have Elizabeth arrange transport, anywhere you want to go. Kansas, home, where we belong. He got in the car, slammed the door. Through the tinted windows, he watched Alexandra stand alone in the parking garage. Her shoulders slumped, the picture of defeat. Then she turned and walked away, and Jack wondered if any of that performance had been real. The GPS tracker in his stomach itched, or maybe that was just his imagination. Lynn was in the driver's seat, her face impassive as she navigated them out of the garage and into San Francisco traffic. 3 cars behind us, she said quietly, not looking at him. Black sedan. They picked us up the moment we left the building. How long do we let them follow? Until they make a move, or until we reach the extraction point, whichever comes first. Lynn took a corner smoothly. Ms. Chen is watching. She has eyes on you through the camera feed. Try not to do anything stupid. In the back seat, Lily was pale but calm. Jack met her eyes in the rearview mirror, tried to project confidence he didn't quite feel. They drove for 20 minutes, Lynn taking them through the city in a pattern designed to look like evasive driving, while actually leading their tail exactly where they wanted them to go. An industrial area near the waterfront, lots of warehouses, minimal civilian traffic. The kind of place where bad things could happen and no one would hear you scream. Perfect. The black sedan stayed with them, patient, professional. Jack counted 3 people inside, driver, passenger, someone in the back. Probably armed. Definitely dangerous. Coming up on the extraction point, Lynn said. You ready? Jack checked his watch. The panic beacon was armed. Checked his jacket, the camera was recording. Took a breath. Ready? Lynn pulled into an alley between 2 abandoned warehouses. The sedan followed, confident now, sensing the trap closing around their prey. But they had it backwards. They were the prey, and they didn't even know it. Lynn stopped the car. Jack got out, pulling Lily with him, playing the role of desperate father, protecting his child. The sedan's doors opened. 3 men emerged, muscular, wearing dark suits that probably hid weapons, their faces hard and emotionless. Mr. Reynolds, the lead man said, his voice carrying a faint Eastern European accent. Mr. Kane would like a word with you. Tell Mr. Kane to go to hell. I'm afraid that's not an option. You have information he needs about Ms. Chen's technology. You're going to share that information. Jack positioned himself between the men and Lily, his hand drifting toward the panic beacon. But he waited. They needed these men to incriminate themselves, needed them to say something they could use. I don't know anything about her technology. You worked with her last night, the Horizon Wing. You made modifications. The man stepped closer. Mr. Kane is very interested in those modifications. Interested enough to pay you well for the information. Interested enough to ensure your daughter's safety if you cooperate. There it was, the threat, the leverage. Jack's hand moved to his watch. And if I don't cooperate? The man smiled, and it was like watching a shark bare its teeth. Then your daughter learns that people who interfere in Mr. Kane's business tend to have unfortunate accidents. Jack pressed the beacon. Everything happened fast. The roar of helicopter rotors from above. Lynn exploding from the driver's seat with a weapon drawn. Security personnel appearing from the warehouses where they'd been staged, weapons trained, shouting commands. The 3 men went for their guns. Lynn dropped the first one with a shot to the shoulder before his hand cleared his jacket. The second man got his weapon out but froze when 6 red laser dots appeared on his chest. The third, the one who'd done all the talking, raised his hands slowly, eyes calculating, looking for an exit that didn't exist. On the ground. Now. Lynn's voice was pure command. Hands behind your head. They complied, professionals recognizing when they'd been outplayed. Jack pulled Lily close, his heart hammering, adrenaline singing through his veins. It had worked. The plan had actually worked. A car pulled up sleek fast, Alexandra behind the wheel. She was out before it fully stopped running to them, her face wild with relief and fear. "You're okay. Both of you." "Jack, are you?" He didn't think. Just pulled her into his arms, held her tight, breathing in her perfume and feeling her heart race against his chest. "We're okay. We got them. It's over." But even as he said it, even as Lynn's team secured the 3 men and called for backup, Jack felt Alexandra stiffen in his arms. "It's not over," she said quietly. "These are just hired muscle. Kane's too smart to get his hands dirty. We have them, but we don't have him." She was right, Jack realized. They'd caught the trap, but the hunter was still out there. Lynn was already questioning the lead man, her voice sharp and professional. "Who hired you? Who do you work for?" The man smiled, blood on his teeth, from where he'd bitten his tongue in the takedown. "I want a lawyer." "You'll get a lawyer, right after you tell us who's paying you to threaten children. Lawyer, now." It went on like that for 10 minutes, Lynn pushing the man, stonewalling his companions, saying nothing at all. They were too well trained, too professional. They'd been prepared for capture, had protocols in place. Jack's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then something made him answer. "Hello? Mr. Reynolds." The voice was cultured, smooth, completely calm. "Richard Kane." That was clever. I'm impressed. Alexandra chose her attack dog well. Jack's blood went cold. He put the phone on speaker, gestured frantically for Lynn to trace the call. "You're done, Kane. We have your people. They'll talk." "No, they won't. They're well compensated for their loyalty and their silence. And even if they did talk, you'd find nothing connecting them to me. I'm a legitimate businessman, Mr. Reynolds, a patriot even. Those men are just private security contractors working a protective detail. You tried to kill Alexandra. You sabotaged her plane. Did I, or did I simply hire a maintenance contractor who happened to do substandard work? These things happen. Accidents. Coincidences." Kane's voice hardened. "But let me be clear. You've interfered in something much larger than you understand. Alexandra stole technology that rightfully belongs to me. Technology that has applications far beyond her naive little dreams of helping the disabled. So this is about money. This is about legacy, about vision, about ensuring that breakthrough technology serves its highest purpose, not her bleeding heart fantasies." Kane paused. "I made her an offer once, a very generous offer. She refused. That was her choice. What happens next is also her choice." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I gave you a chance to walk away. You didn't take it, so now we do this the hard way." The call ended. Lynn's face was grim. "He's using a VPN routed through 12 countries. We can't trace it." Alexandra looked like she might be sick. "He's escalating. Jack, Lily, you need to go into hiding. Real hiding, not this penthouse. Somewhere he can't find you." "What about you?" Jack demanded. "I'll be fine. I have security." "He's already gotten past your security once. He sabotaged your plane, compromised your staff, has been watching us for weeks." Jack grabbed her shoulders, made her look at him. "We're not separating. That's what he wants, to divide us, make us vulnerable. We stay together." "Jack's right," Lynn said quietly. "Splitting up makes everyone weaker. We need to consolidate, secure a single location, and figure out our next move." Alexandra looked between them, Jack determined and scared but standing firm. Lily brave beyond her years, Lynn professional and lethal. Her team, her people, the ones she'd endangered by existing, by being successful, by daring to dream bigger than men like Richard Kane thought she deserved. "Okay," she said finally. "Together. But we need somewhere absolutely secure. Somewhere Kane can't reach, can't bribe, can't penetrate." "I know a place," Jack said. Everyone looked at him. "My farm, Kansas. Middle of nowhere, no neighbors for miles. And I know every inch of the land. We can see anyone coming from a long way off." "That's the first place he'll look," Lynn objected. "Then we make it the last place he'll want to go. We turn it into a fortress. Your people, my knowledge of the terrain. We make it so secure that coming after us there would be suicide." Jack's voice was steel. "And then we wait. We let him come to us. And this time we end it. For good." Alexandra stared at him. This man who'd been thrown into her world, and instead of breaking, had adapted, had fought back, had stood tall when everything around him was falling apart. "You're sure?" she asked. "I'm sure. It's time to go home." The Kansas sky had never looked more beautiful or more dangerous. Jack stood on his farmhouse porch 3 days after leaving San Francisco, watching the sun climb over fields that had been transformed into something between a fortress and a trap. Lynn's security team had worked around the clock installing motion sensors in the corn rows, infrared cameras on every approach, reinforced doors and windows that could withstand small arms fire. The old barn now housed enough surveillance equipment to monitor a small country, and the root cellar Sarah's grandfather had built during the Cold War was stocked with enough supplies to last months. But it was still home, still the place where he'd raised Lily, buried his wife's ashes under the oak tree, learned to survive on determination and instant coffee. Alexandra had turned one corner of the living room into a makeshift command center, her screens and equipment looking alien against the handmade furniture and family photos. The contrast should have been jarring, but somehow it worked. Technology and tradition, wealth and simplicity existing in the same space because they had to, because survival demanded it. Movement on the north perimeter. Lynn's voice came through the comm system they'd all been fitted with. "Deer, 3 of them." Jack relaxed slightly. False alarms had been constant for 3 days. Every animal, every shift in the wind, every passing car on the distant highway triggered alerts. His nerves were stretched so thin he could hear them humming. Lily sat at the kitchen table doing homework or pretending to. She had her acceptance packet from Franklin Prep spread out in front of her, but Jack saw how her eyes kept drifting to the windows, how she jumped at every sound. She was 12 years old and living in an armed camp waiting for a billionaire sociopath to make his move. This had to end. Today. Soon. Before the waiting destroyed them as thoroughly as any attack. Alexandra emerged from the command center exhausted but wired. She hadn't slept more than a few hours since they'd arrived, constantly monitoring feeds, coordinating with her legal team, tracking Richard Kane's movements. He was still in San Francisco, still playing the legitimate businessman, attending board meetings and charity galas, while his hired killers sat in federal custody, refusing to talk. "Anything?" Jack asked. Marcus Chen broke. Alexandra's voice was tight with triumph and exhaustion. "My engineer, the one who sabotaged the plane. FBI offered him immunity in exchange for testimony. He's giving them everything, the payments, the communications, direct evidence linking Kane to the sabotage." Jack felt hope kindle in his chest. That's enough to arrest him. It's enough to investigate him. But Kane has lawyers, judges in his pocket, enough money to tie this up in court for years. Alexandra sat down heavily on the porch steps. "And while he's fighting the legal battle, we're still targets. He'll never stop Jack. Not until we're dead, or he is." The words hung in the morning air like a death sentence. Jack knew she was right. Men like Richard Kane didn't surrender. They didn't accept defeat. They burned everything down rather than admit they'd lost. "Then we make him come to us," Jack said quietly. "We give him what he wants." "What's that?" "A chance to finish this personally, No proxies, no hired muscle. Just him. Jack turned to face her. You said he's got an ego. That this is about legacy, about proving he's better than you. So we challenge that. We make it personal. Alexandra's eyes widened. You want to bait him here to the farm? I want to end this. And the only way to do that is to force his hand, make him act rashly. Emotional. Your testimony about the sabotage will ruin him professionally. But what really destroys him is public humiliation. Everyone knowing he failed, that he tried to kill you and you beat him. Jack's voice was calm, certain. We broadcast it. Live. You explaining everything. His crimes, his failures, his desperate attempt to steal what he couldn't build himself. We make him so angry he has to respond. That's insane. That's using his weakness against him. The same way he used your compassion against you by threatening us. Jack knelt in front of her, took her hands. We control the field. We choose the time. And when he comes, we're ready. Lynn had appeared in the doorway, listening. It could work. If we set it up right. Ms. Chen does a live stream. We monitor all approaches, have extraction ready if needed. We let him think he's walking into an easy target, but actually, we're the ones with the advantage, Jack finished. Home territory, prepared defenses, the element of surprise. Alexandra looked between them, her brilliant mind clearly running scenarios. He'll come prepared, armed, probably with more hired professionals. Let him, we'll be ready. Jack squeezed her hands. Alexandra, this is the only way. Otherwise, we're running forever, or hiding forever, or waiting for him to get lucky. This way, we choose the ending. She was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the fields where Jack had almost died, pulling her from a burning plane, where everything had started, and now, maybe where everything would end. Okay, she said finally. Let's do it. They set it up for that evening when the light would be perfect, and Kane would have time to mobilize, but not time to plan elaborately. Alexandra positioned herself on the porch, the farmhouse behind her, the golden Kansas sunset painting everything in amber and shadow. She'd dressed carefully, not the power suits of her CEO persona, but simple jeans and a white blouse. Authentic, vulnerable. Everything designed to enrage a man who thought she'd taken what belonged to him. Jack watched from inside where he could see her through the window, but remain hidden from the camera. Lily was in the root cellar with 2 of Lynn's people protected by 3 feet of concrete and steel. Lynn herself was on the roof with a sniper rifle watching the approaches. The rest of her team was positioned throughout the property, invisible but ready. Alexandra took a breath, looked directly into the camera Lynn had set up, and went live. Within seconds, thousands of people were watching. Within minutes, tens of thousands. The tech world knew Alexandra Chen. Everyone wanted to know what she was about to say. My name is Alexandra Chen, CEO of Horizon Technologies. She began, her voice steady and clear. 3 weeks ago, someone tried to kill me. They sabotaged my plane, caused it to crash, and left me to die in the wreckage. I survived because of a good man named Jack Reynolds, who risked his life to pull me from the flames. She paused. Let that sink in. Jack saw the view counter climbing 50,000, 75,000, 100,000 people watching. I'm here tonight to tell you who tried to kill me and why. His name is Richard Kane, co-founder and former partner of Horizon Technologies. He wanted technology I developed, neural interface designs that could help the disabled, that could change lives. But Richard didn't want to help people. He wanted to weaponize it, sell it to the highest bidder, use innovation as a tool for profit and control. Jack's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He ignored it. When I refused to let him corrupt what we'd built, he left. But he didn't let go. For 5 years, he's tried to compete with Horizon, failed every time. So he decided if he couldn't beat me, he'd eliminate me. He paid my engineer $500,000 to sabotage my plane. He hired killers to threaten Jack Reynolds and his 12-year-old daughter. The power went out. Everything went dark, the house, the cameras, the security monitors. Backup generators should have kicked in immediately. They didn't. Jack's combat instincts screamed danger. "Lynn?" he called into the comms. "Static. Dead." He grabbed the pistol from his waistband, moved to the window. Alexandra was standing on the porch, looking around, confused and vulnerable. Jack burst through the door, grabbed her arm. "Inside. Now." "What's happening?" "He's here. He cut the power-jammed communications. This is it." Jack pulled her into the house, his eyes scanning the darkening fields. The sun was setting fast, turning the world to shadows and uncertain shapes. Movement, there by the barn, and there near the old tractor, and God at least 6 figures approaching from different directions, coordinated and professional. "Lynn?" Jack shouted, knowing it was useless. "Anyone!" A shot rang out from the roof. Lynn, still operational, still fighting. One of the approaching figures went down, but then return fire erupted, automatic weapons, lighting up the twilight. Jack heard Lynn curse, heard the sound of her scrambling for cover. They were outgunned. Jack pushed Alexandra toward the root cellar. "Get to Lily. Lock it from inside. Don't open it for anyone but me." "What about you?" "I'm buying you time." He checked his pistol, 15 rounds. Against at least 6 hostiles with automatic weapons. The math wasn't good. "Go! Now!" She ran. Jack took position by the window, his military training taking over, pushing aside fear and replacing it with cold calculation. They'd come in through the cornfield using the stalks for cover. Smart. He couldn't see them clearly, but he could see the corn moving track their approach. He fired twice, aiming for movement, heard a scream hit. Maybe. The return fire was immediate and overwhelming, bullets punching through walls that had been reinforced but weren't built for a sustained assault. Jack dropped, rolled, came up at a different window, fired 3 more times. The slide locked back, empty magazine. He reloaded with shaking hands, his mind racing. Where was Lynn's team? Why weren't they responding? The answer came in the form of an explosion from the barn. Not huge, but enough to tell him Kane had planned this perfectly. Taken out their surveillance hub, their communication center, probably trapped or neutralized Lynn's security team in the process. This was always the plan. The live stream was bait, but not for Kane, for them. He'd wanted them to think they were in control, wanted them to feel safe so he could strike when their guard was finally down. Jack had underestimated him, and now they were going to die for it. The front door exploded inward. Jack spun, fired twice, dropped the first man through. But there were more behind him, and Jack was down to 8 rounds now. 7, 6. He retreated toward the root cellar, firing as he went, each shot counting, each one buying seconds. He reached the cellar door, yanked it open. "It's me!" he shouted. "It's Dad!" The door unlocked. Jack tumbled inside, slammed it shut behind him. The lock engaged heavy steel designed to withstand anything short of explosives. They were safe, for now. Alexandra and Lily huddled together in the dim emergency lighting. Lynn's 2 security guards were there too, one bleeding from a shoulder wound, both looking grim. "Dad!" Lily threw herself at him. Jack held her with one arm, his gun still trained on the door with the other. "We're okay, baby. We're okay." But they weren't okay. They were trapped in a concrete box with limited air, no communications, and hostiles above who had all the time in the world to dig them out. Jack met Alexandra's eyes over Lily's head, saw his own fear reflected there along with something else. Guilt. She thought this was her fault, that bringing them into her world had destroyed them. "Hey," he said softly. "Not your fault. We made our choices. We stand by them." "Jack, An explosion rocked the cellar. Not close, but not far either. They were testing the defenses, probing for weaknesses. One of the guards spoke up, his voice tight with pain. "We have maybe an hour before they breach. Less if they use heavy explosives. No way out except through them." Jack's mind raced. They needed help, needed backup. But how communications were jammed? They were alone. Except, "Alexandra, your watch, the neural interface one, does it have satellite capability?" She looked down at her wrist, at the expensive piece of technology she never took off. Yes, but it's designed for data transfer, not communication. Can it send a signal? Any kind of signal? A distress beacon, maybe. But it would take time to reach anyone, and... Do it. Send it to the FBI, to your people at Horizon, to anyone who might be monitoring. Send our coordinates and a mayday. Jack turned to the wounded guard. How long can you hold this door? Against small arms, indefinitely. Against explosives. He shook his head. Not long. Another explosion closer this time. Dust rained from the ceiling. Daddy, I'm scared, Lily whispered. Jack pulled her close, kissed her forehead. I know, baby. Me too. But we're going to be okay. I promise. It was a promise he had no way of keeping. But sometimes promises weren't about truth. They were about hope. About giving people something to hold on to when everything else was falling apart. Alexandra had her watch off her fingers, flying over the interface, sending out a signal that might reach someone or might disappear into the void. Above them, footsteps. Voices. The sound of drilling. They were going through the door. How long? Jack asked. They're through in 10 minutes, the uninjured guard said. He checked his weapon. We have ammunition for maybe 3 minutes of sustained fire. After that, we fight with whatever we have. Jack looked at each of them. Alexandra brilliant and terrified. Lily so young and so brave. The guards professionals facing impossible odds. Nobody dies easy. We make them earn every inch. Understood. They nodded. Even Lily setting her jaw in an expression so like Sarah's, it made Jack's heart break. The drilling stopped. Silence. Worse than the noise because it meant they were ready. Here they come, the guard whispered. The door blew inward in a shower of sparks and metal. The guards opened fire immediately, their weapons deafening in the enclosed space. Jack pushed Alexandra and Lily behind him, his pistol up, waiting for targets. Men poured through the breach. The guards dropped 2-3, but there were too many. Return fire caught the wounded guard in the chest. He went down. The other guard's weapon clicked empty. He drew a sidearm, fired twice more before bullets found him too. Jack fired his last 3 rounds. Hit one hostile, maybe 2. Then his slide locked back, and he was empty, unarmed except for raw determination. A figure stepped through the smoke and dust. Older, silver-haired, immaculately dressed, even in tactical gear. Richard Kane. He held a pistol, casually, almost carelessly, his eyes cold and amused. Alexandra, he said pleasantly, as if they were meeting for coffee. You always did have a flair for the dramatic. A live stream, really. Richard. Alexandra stepped forward, putting herself between Kane and Jack. This is between us. Let them go. Let them go. Kane laughed. My dear, they're witnesses. Loose ends. You know I can't do that. He gestured with his gun. But I can make you an offer. One last time. Give me the neural interface designs, the complete specifications, and I'll make their deaths quick, painless. You have my word. Your word is worthless. Perhaps. But it's all I'm offering. Kane's expression hardened. I built Horizon Technologies as much as you did, Alexandra. More even. I brought in the capital, the connections, the vision. And you pushed me out, stole everything we built together, and claimed it as yours alone. You wanted to sell weapons to dictators and warlords and anyone with enough money. I wanted to change the world. You wanted to save it. There's a difference. Kane raised his pistol, aiming at Jack. The technology could have made us gods. Instead, you're using it to help cripples walk. It's pathetic. Jack didn't think, didn't plan. Just moved, putting himself in front of the gun, shielding both Alexandra and Lily with his body. Then shoot me first, he said quietly. Because you're not touching them. Kane's finger tightened on the trigger. Jack prepared to die, hoping it would be fast, hoping Lily wouldn't have to watch. The shot came from outside. Kane stumbled a red flower blooming on his shoulder. His gun clattered to the floor. More shots, precision fire from multiple directions. The hostiles, still standing, went down in seconds, professional soldiers cut down by something more professional. And then, Lynn was there, bleeding from a dozen places, but still standing, her rifle smoking. Behind her came FBI agents, SWAT teams, Alexandra's security forces. The cavalry arriving in the last possible moment. Special Agent Webb appeared in the doorway, surveyed the scene with grim satisfaction. "Richard Kane, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, sabotage of civil aircraft, and about 15 other charges we'll sort out later. You have the right to remain silent, and I strongly suggest you use it." Kane was on his knees, clutching his shoulder, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. "You can't prove anything. My lawyers will—" "Your engineer already gave you up. We have recordings, financial records, testimony from your hired muscle who decided immunity was better than loyalty." Webb smiled. "You're done, Kane. Finished. And the best part, everyone saw Alexandra's live stream before you cut it. The whole world knows what you tried to do. You wanted a legacy. Congratulations. You're going to be remembered as the man who tried to murder his partner and failed." Kane's scream of frustration as they dragged him away was the sweetest sound Jack had ever heard. The next hours passed in a blur. Paramedics treating the wounded, FBI agents securing the scene, reporters arriving, held back at the property line but recording everything. Jack found himself sitting on the porch steps, the same steps where this had all started, with Lily in his arms, and Alexandra beside him, all three of them alive and together and safe. Finally, safe. Lynn appeared bandaged but smiling. "Your distress signal worked. Hit our satellite relay and bounced to every emergency frequency. FBI was already on their way thanks to Marcus Chen's testimony, but your beacon told us you were in immediate danger. We came as fast as we could." "Not fast enough," Jack said, looking at the body bags being loaded into ambulances. Lynn's guards, good people who'd died protecting them. "No," Lynn agreed quietly. "Not fast enough, but fast enough to save you. That counts for something." She walked away, leaving them alone in the Kansas twilight. The farm was a war zone, bullet holes in the walls, the barn smoldering, the fields trampled. But it was still standing. Still home. "I'm sorry," Alexandra said suddenly, "for all of this. For pulling you into my world, for putting Lily in danger, for—" "Stop." Jack turned to face her. "You didn't pull us anywhere. I jumped, by choice, and I'd do it again. Why? Because you gave us hope. Because you saw potential in Lily, and gave her opportunities I never could. Because when I pulled you from that plane, you didn't just take, you gave back. Everything you've done, the scholarship, the job offer, even bringing danger to our door, it reminded me that life isn't about playing it safe. It's about standing up, fighting back, protecting what matters." Alexandra's eyes were bright with tears. "What matters to you, Jack?" He looked at Lily, drowsing against his shoulder, then back at Alexandra, this brilliant, complicated woman who'd crashed into his life and changed everything. "You," he said simply. "Both of you. You matter." Alexandra kissed him. Not dramatic, not passionate, just soft and real and right. A promise of something beginning, not ending. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "So," she said, "about that job offer. Head of Practical Applications at Horizon Technologies. You still interested?" "Depends. Does it come with hazard pay?" "After tonight, definitely." They laughed, the sound startling in its normalcy, as if the world hadn't almost ended, as if they hadn't almost died, as if everything wasn't different now, forever changed by fire and fear and the simple choice to stand together when it would have been easier to run. 3 months later, Jack stood on the same porch in a suit that actually fit, watching a construction crew put the finishing touches on the restored barn. The farmhouse had been rebuilt stronger than before. The fields were planted again, and next to the old corn silo now stood something new. A small research facility, a satellite office of Horizon Technologies, where Jack worked every day, designing innovations that actually helped people. Lily was at Franklin Prep, thriving, brilliant, already catching the attention of universities. She came home on weekends full of stories about her classes and friends and dreams of designing aircraft that would take humanity to the stars. And Alexandra. Alexandra had kept her penthouse in San Francisco, but spent more time in Kansas, now drawn back to this place where she'd almost died and chosen instead to live. To really live, not just exist behind walls of money and power. They'd testified at Richard Kane's trial, watched him sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The neural interface technology had launched to worldwide acclaim, changing lives just as Alexandra had dreamed. Horizon Technologies' stock had tripled. The world kept spinning. But what really mattered, was standing right there on the porch with him. Alexandra's hand in his. Both of them watching the Kansas sunset paint the sky in amber and gold. "You know," Alexandra said, "when my plane crashed into your field, I thought my life was over. And now I think it was just beginning." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Jack Reynolds, for saving my life, for reminding me what life is actually for. Thank you for crashing into my cornfield." Jack smiled. "Worst thing that ever happened to me." They stood there as the sun set, as the stars came out, as the night wrapped around them like a promise. Two people from different worlds who'd found common ground in courage, in loyalty. In the simple truth that real value wasn't measured in wealth or status, but in the choices you made when everything was on the line. Jack had run into a burning plane for a stranger and found a partner. Alexandra had trusted a man she barely knew and discovered what she'd been missing her whole life. And Lily, brilliant, brave Lily, had learned that sometimes the most important thing you could do was stand tall when the world tried to knock you down. They'd faced death and chose life, faced fear and chose courage, faced the easy path and chose the right one instead. And in the end, that made all the difference.